HR managers, all the brand managers.
Nothing in India. Nothing. But if you really look reasonably, that this corporate responsibility discussion has been on in one format or the other for decades and decades, and you can even take it back to the last century, and you've researched all this in India and colonial times. And, okay, but since 2004, when this was seriously human rights in business being discussed, and from nothing almost directly today, 2012 and 11, we have the UN making guiding principles, and in our own country there is a written template now for companies of which human rights are a component. Now I think 100 months to do all that, or 80 months, was not a long time. It was very quick. And I think this is a fast world, but it will depend here, I think, a lot in a country like ours. The media has to sensibly get involved over the long period of time. All media. And I think that the good news, Sanjay, is that we are a very young country, so young people don't carry a lot of human rights baggage. They're much more amenable to the language of human rights, frankly, than the older generation is. India is a young country. I think people are seeing and watching human rights all over the world. They're not afraid to use that language. They want to know more. So they're not carrying a bias against human rights like maybe, people who are 70 and 80 today, or in the fag end of their corporate careers. And the media is vibrant, and they've got to promote stories and things from a human rights perspective, channel discussions. So I have a lot of faith in using that simple media rather than getting technical. People are not going to read books on human rights, Sanjay, in the 21st century. You and I might. The average person wants to know basically what are their human rights, is these corporations following them, and if there's a violation of mine or somebody else's, can I get some justice done? And that I think in this world people are not asking for charity anymore. No disabled person I have ever come across is asking for dispensation of charity. They're asking for an equal opportunity. And that is a human right.
Again, our investors are not talking about it.
Increasingly they are, Sanjay. I think that the fact that the stock exchange, for example, as you've spoken to Aditi, have made reporting slowly mandatory. What is reporting? Let me take it this way, and I'll see you. The first right, to me, is a right to information. If you don't have a right to information, you don't know anything. How will you recognize other rights? India has a Right to Information Act. How do we apply this to corporations? This is a big question. GRI is one voluntary mechanism, the listed companies mechanism, what MCA planning. These are all giving closure about non-financial and financial impact. And this will finesse itself increasingly. So first of all, now we have that right to information increasingly. Once that is there, investors will certainly use it and push it more. So I think you've seen a very positive trend with the right to information in the country so far. And Aditi must have mentioned that to you.
Yeah, she mentioned it.
But she will talk about it from reporting and disclosure. I will talk about the same thing, that reporting and disclosure and Aditi's work in the GRI would never be successful in India, really in the long term, if we did not have our own Right to Information Act. Now the RTI doesn't apply to companies, it applies to government. But through the government we can get information on certainly situations where government is funding industry, where government have loaned money to it, where it is a joint venture, etc., etc., etc. And then we can push for a change in the Act to bring the corporate sector into the purview of the RTI. Certainly where public monies or public services are concerned, as has happened in other countries, by the way, Sanjay. So I think we are well set to do this, but I'm not yet seeing in India, I mean, we need some sort of CSR advocacy organization that actually is doing no more than all these things we have talked about, many of these things. It's been done by groups of people and individuals scattered across, but I think the time is now for one of these CSR organizations to push one topic, like the right to information, affirmative action. There are different people doing it, and the business schools, you're very right. I think these have been, I think they've been laggard. I think they've been very slow in promoting CSR issues generally, except for a few leaders. There are over 1,000 B schools here, so this is an urgent place. And I think the chambers, NGOs, or a mix of organizations should get these schools to develop the curricula, develop the case studies on human rights that are relevant and pertinent to India, urgently and fast.
And it should be mandatory in year one, not an optional.
Well, I'd like to see companies fund all this. I mean, putting some of their money, the Tata Trust or something said, here's 2 crores to develop 20 case studies teaching material, the module on human rights. And then you embed these with the, key learning institutions, and where it's successful, everyone will copy it. And at least a template of what is being taught, a key group of 30, 40 professors. We've had, Sanjay, conversations with these schools before on various topics. But I'm happy, along with other people, over the next few years, this is what I'm doing increasingly, is focusing my attention on human rights in business. So at least you can be sure, whilst other things are happening, at least over the next few years, the momentum we've started, I will do my best to add capacity, fill up any gaps, so then my support to any further discussions on what we can do in India. And lastly, Sanjay, it's not just India. My attention is, I think we're trying to do this on a regional basis, meaning in South Asia. There is every good reason for us to share CSR across our immediate boundaries. From a trade and poverty and development perspective, these are our neighbors. And I'm involved happily with a number of networks of NGOs and other corporations that are having these discussions with Nepal, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Pakistan, etc.